Masechet Zevachim, Perek Shishi, page 60. We are 3 lines from the top of the page. I would like to express my very deep gratitude, not only to those who are here physically or watching us, but those who also write to us so beautiful comments, letter of encouragement, questions, and more. Thank you very much. And I want to bless you on this special time, the eve of Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, that this month, this time, will be a month of good health, prosperity, and high level of learning together. Many new novelties, chidushim, and ideas involved with our learning. One of them, it's what we learn based on the Gemarah in Hullin, page 18, is that the Mizbeach, the altar in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, needs to be total halak, meaning there has to be a pointless, nothing there. Total, in a sense, avanim shleimot, the stones has to be total, clean, pure, beautiful. The Gemarah in Hullin, as we said, page 18, and you see it in other places, they say that even small, it's called pgima ktana, even a small amount of cracks and other things on the Mizbeach, on the altar, it's already problematic, and the issue is that it's basically disqualified the offering that was brought there. It has to be that stones mi karka betula, has to be from a place that it's total, one piece clear, either ke'ayam or minechalim, meaning that something that is really naturally pure without any pgima. That's the core to building the Mizbeach, the altar. The Meshech Chochmah is one of the commentary on the Torah, and the Hamash explains that when you have pgima, when the chaser mashwe, when something missing at the stones, then it's already deficiency. You cannot use it, it's disqualified. Versus if it's seed, so it's a different story. When it's come to seed, so they have to have pgima nikeret, or tefach kezait, etc. So Kodashim shenishchatu, if there's any consecrated item that was slaughtered on the altar, in that Mizbeach Pagum, in that altar, that it's not total clean and unblemished in a sense of any cracks, retroactively it's disqualified. So based on that, we learned yesterday the machloket, the disputation between two Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Yehuda, and now we zoom in at the verbal juxtaposition, at the word the Gzerah Shava, the word Ravua, the square, that it's written twice. So here the Gemarah asks, Rabbi Yehuda, ki gamir Gzerah Shava berochba gamir. As we explained yesterday, that it was a different approach to that word, the square, if you take it in a literal sense, the way it's written, or you have homiletic, a different approach to understanding. Here we have Rabbi Yehuda who hold that when it's come to the Cooper altar, built in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, and we explained yesterday it was in a sense of juxtaposition, 2 different altars. It was the altar that built time of Moses, and it was the altar that built in the time of Solomon. And we explained yesterday the time of Solomon, it was an extension that King Solomon, by force of circumstance, need to extend the consecration of the Azara of a temple courtyard in order to extend the capability of having offering in addition to the central part of the temple. So here Rabbi Yehuda understand that when it's come to the copper altar built in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu was actually 3 cubits high, and interpret this juxtaposition, that's verbal analogy, based upon the word ravua, the square, from which Rabbi Yossi derived that the height of the copper altar was 10 cubits. So the question is, Rabbi Yehuda ki gamir gzera shava berochba ugamir. So here, Rabbi Yehuda, when he used the square that the juxtaposition that's written twice, he derived from that the altar width, which means not the height but the width. So there is a pasuk in the book of Yechezkel in Ezekiel, as we mentioned on page 59b. So that's the derivative. What's the way they use it for the copper altar. So Rabbi Yehuda hold that against the view of Rabbi Yossi, that according to Rabbi Yossi, the altar have a 10 cubits. So it means that when you have the priest that works on this altar, everyone outside, the entire people outside can see him. And the Gemarah challenged that, and he said that what you see here, you see that in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, the altar was built, was 10 cubits by 10 cubits. So the Gemarah asks, "Ulerabbi Yehuda hakamitchezei kohen." So if you follow the view of Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda hold that the altar was 3 cubits high, and the curtains surrounding the courtyard of the tabernacle were 5 cubits high. So you see here that there's a visibility of the Kohen, of the priest, while performing the service at the top of the altar. Avodah de biyado lo mitchazeh. So yes, the Kohen is visible, but the item which the Kohen performed, the sacrificial offering, that in his hand are not visible. That's basically hidden by the klaim. So that's sufficient. So now the Gemarah go back to the disputation between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, as we start in the beginning of our sugya yesterday on pages 59a and b, understanding the verse in the book of Melachim, first book of Melachim, chapter 8, verse 64. Bishlama leRabbi Yehuda, haynu dichtiv kidash hamelech et toch hechatzer. So we understand, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the floor of the temple courtyard was consecrated so that it could serve as an altar. So it meaning, when you see the pasuk translation, the king sacrificed the middle of the court, which means that's literal, kichtavan, which means because it was abundance of sacrificial offering, by force of circumstance, King Solomon needs to sanctify the floor as an altar, to have sacrificial offering there as well. Ela le Rabbi Yossi, however, when you follow the Rabbi Yossi that hold that King Solomon did not sanctify the floor to make it as a altar, my kidesh, what is the meaning of the pasuk of the verse that said that the king sacrificed? So the Gemarah said, the answer is leha'amid ba mizbeach. So that the King Solomon sacrificed the courtyard in order to stand the altar in it. So basically, Kideshet ha'azara באותו שטח של המזבח בלבד. He sanctified that specific place in Azara as a mizbech. It's important to know that, as we learned in a sense at two different times, Mizbach HaNechoshet, the copper altar, was at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. It was a part of the tabernacle, and if you look at the pasuk, it brings the midot hamizbeach, they bring the measure of the altar. So one of the issues we learned yesterday, that we struggle if it's really bamtziut, those measurements, is because the pasuk said v'asita et hamizbeach shitim 500 אורך ו500 רוחב ו300 קומתו. So, according to what we understand, for all different sources, it's not really midot amotiyot. That's our struggle. What exactly involved here? It's not the exact. It's a different meaning. So bishlam al Rabbi Yossi hanu dechtiv. So if you go by the Rabbi Yossi, that's we understand the word ki mizbach hanichoshet asher lifnei Hashem katon melachil ta'olah v'tamincha. So in that sense, it was a small, katon meaning small, you see, without tet. Ela le Rabbi Yehuda mai katon. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, what is the meaning too small? So because according to his view, the stone, the altar of King Solomon wasn't sufficient, so he needs to sanctify the floor the same as Kedushat Mizbeach, the same as sanctification of an altar. So the Gemarah said, Hachi ke'amar, this is what they happen, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Mizbach avanim she'asa Shlomo, tachat Mizbach hanechoshet katon hava. So it means the stone altar that King Solomon built in the place of the copper altar, built in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, was too small to accommodate the large quantity of offering. So that's the idea of naming after that. You see in the Chronicles, chapter 4, they said, Vayas Mizbach Nechoshet, Rashi said, which means that the measurement is 20 by 20 cubits. It's a big question. The Radak and Malbim other juxtaposes the text between the book of Chronicles and the book of Melachim, and they struggle again with the issue of understanding what's the measurement and how exactly those avodah, those rites involved. But anyway, b'may plige. What is the principle of the machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi? Mar savar, Rabbi Yehuda hold, danim chutz mechutz ve'en danim chutz mipnim. So they said that Rabbi Yehuda hold that we derive dimensions of the external altar built in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu from the external altar described in Yechezkel, in Ezekiel, but we do not derive the dimensions of the external altar from the dimensions of the inner altar used for burning the incense. Umar Savar and Rabbi Yossi hold, danim kli mikli ve'en danim kli mi binyan, which means we take the copper altar built in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu from the dimension of another portable vessel, which is the golden incense built at that time, but we do not derive the dimension of the portable altar vessel from the dimension of the edifice, which is the stone altar in the temple. Now, as you see, there are 4 different points that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi disputed. Number 1 is the floor, it's Pat HaAzara, the floor of the temple courtyard. Rabbi Yehuda hold that the floor have Kedushat Mizbeach, they carry the sanctity of the altar to have Imurei Korbanot, to have the offering, sacrificial offering. According to Rabbi Yossi, you can't have the sanctification on the floor, it's not sanctified, and therefore you cannot have service on the floor. 2, that the Gag Mizbach HaNechoshet, the top of the copper altar of Moshe Rabbeinu, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is 10 cubit by 10 cubit. According to Rabbi Yossi, is 5 by 5 cubits. 3, the heights of the copper altar at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is 3 cubits. According to Rabbi Yossi, 9 cubits. That's not included the kranot, the corners, that it was 1 cubit. And number 4, the heights, Gova Kalei Chatzara Mishkan, the tabernacle, the courtyard. So according to Rabbi Yehuda is 5 cubits, according to Rabbi Yossi there are 15 cubits. So they're all based on one understanding, or in a way disagreement. How do you understand the verbal juxtaposition, the analogy between the words Ravua, square, that it's written twice? Anyway, אמר רבא, מודה רבי יהודה בדמים, דם הקורבן, the blood of the offering, אפשר לזרוק רק על המזבח, you can sprinkle only on the altar. So even Rabbi Yehuda hold that all the ritzpah, all the floor of the courtyard has the same kedusha, same sanctity as an altar. That applies solely for haktarat imurim, that you can do it in any place in the temple courtyard. But he said that the blood is not atoned only when you sprinkle ala mizbeach mamash, really on the altar. The Tanya, we learned in the Braita, when it's come to a Paschal offering, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, after they finish the all slaughtering of the Paschal offering, כוס אחד היה ממלא מדם התערובות ושופכו על גבי מזבח. So he said on that eve of Passover, the Kohen will fill one cup with the blood of many offerings brought that day, and that was now mixed together on the floor. And then he will pour it on the altar, ושופכו על גבי מזבח, שאם יישפך דמו של אחת מהם, that if all of the blood of one of the offering has been spilled and was never presented on the altar, נמצא זה מכשירו. This cup would contain a small amount of that blood, and pouring it on the altar will render the offering fit. ואיסל כדעתך, סבר רבי יהודה כולה עזרה מקדשה. If you tell me that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the entire courtyard was consecrated, so it has the status of the altar, ha'it avida lei mitzvatei, the mitzvah of sacrificing the Paschal offering was performed, even if the blood spilled on the ground of the courtyard and never presented on the altar. So it means that you have to admit that Rabbi Yehuda agreed that when it's come to blood, the floor, it's not hold the same kedusha, the same sanctity as mizbeach, as the altar. So the Gemarah rejected that and said, Vedilma, it may happen that Rabbi Yehuda was concerned for the blood that spilled on the floor, mishum de kasavar, because Rabbi Yehuda hold shficha mikoach ha'adam be'inan, that you need to have kind of human force, the person who do it, that the same zrika, the sprinkling, has to be in the hand, in the human force. So therefore, this blood that spilled by itself on the floor, you do not have the mitzvat zrika. It didn't happen by the Rabbi Akiva Iger bring the Rashba on this, that if the Kohen sprinkled the blood on the floor, does that mean that he fulfilled Yatzai Dechovato? Unlike Rabba's view, so is a discussion. Rabbi Akiva Iger and more have a discussion on that. There is a book called Torah Kodesh and the Eizeho, many more that discuss how exactly we treat the blood that came on the floor. But im ken nishkelei venishpichlei aduchtei. So let's the Kohen take the cup of the mixture of blood and pour it in the place on the floor rather than on the altar. And that's basically, that's Modeh Rabbi Yehuda bedamim, that's basically follow the view of Rava. So the Gemara said, V'dilma mishum deva'enan mitzvah min hamuvchar. Maybe the sprinkle on the floor is okay, and the reason that Rabbi Yehuda required to put it on the altar, because we need to do the prime, the most optimal mitzvah. So even Rabbi Yehuda hold that when it's come to a floor of the temple courtyard, the same status as the altar. But he agreed that we should prefer for the floor, for the blood to be poured on the altar itself. That's the difference between mitzvah min hamuvchar, that's not. You see more on that in the Rambam. The Rambam, Ilchot Beit HaBchira, chapter 2, basically hold that when it's come to halacha, we do not have nafkamina divrei Rava, because we follow the psak of Rabbi Yossi, that the floor did not carry a kedusha. The same is kedushat mizbeach. Anyway, Amar Rabbi Lazar. So now we have another important halacha in regards to mizbeach shenifgam. As we said at Gemarah in Hullin 18, that the altar that was damaged, Amar Rabbi Lazar mizbeach shenifgam en ochlin begino shiarei mincha. So he said that altar was damaged, one may not eat the remainder of meal offering on its account. He brings the pasuk in Vayikra chapter 10 verse 12. They said, K'chu et hamincha v'ichlu hamatzot etzel hamizbeach. Take the meal offering and eat it without leaven beside the altar, for it's most holy. So it's a kind of difficult. V'chi etzel hamizbeach hachalua, because the entire courtyard is befitting for that. It's not just the mizbeach. Ela, because the pasuk used the word etzel, it means bizman shehu shalem velo bizman shehu chaser. Only when the altar is complete, not when it's time that it's missing part, that it's have scratches, that it's not, that is pagum. And the Rambam in Sefer Avodah Ilchot Psulei HaMukdashim chapter 3 said, and I'm using translation from Korean edition, they said it is prohibited to eat offerings of the most sacred order or offering of lesser sanctity while the altar is damaged. Because the pasuk said in Leviticus chapter 10 verse 12, and eat it without leaven beside the altar. Offerings of lesser sanctity may be not consumed in Yerushalayim until the altar is repaired. That's basically follow the view of Rabbi Lazar and Abaye. Ashkechan. So we found source of this halacha with regard to what? Reminder of the meal offering, Shiarei Mincha. Kodshei Kodashim, the most highest sacred, like sin offering, guilt offering. How do you know it? Talmud Lomar, Kodesh Kodashim. So that's again is juxtaposition. You derive from that the most holy. So it's used with regard to other offerings of the most sacred order. We understand toward this verbal analogy that this offering may not be eaten if the altar is damaged. Peace offering, Kodashim Kalim, lesser sanctiminain. How do you know that they eat in Yerushalayim only when the altar is undamaged? Amar Abaye Atiyah Midrasha de Rabbi Yossi. We derive it from the exposition of Rabbi Yossi, which means Rabbi Yossi in the upcoming Braita brings the din of the firstborn. We derive from that also the rules of lesser Kodashim, the Tanya. This is Sifri, the book of Dvarim, chapter 14. Rabbi Yossi Omer Shlosha Dvarim Mishum Shlosha Zkenim. Rabbi Yossi said three important halachic matter on the name of three erudite elders. V'zeh echad mehem, and this is one of them. Page 60b. רבי ישמעאל, שלושה זקנים וזה אחד מהם, רבי ישמעאל אומר, יכול יעלה אדם מעשר שני לירושלים ויאכלנו בזמן הזה. So Rabbi Yishmael says, a person might thought that one can go ascend to Yerushalayim and bring a second tithe, even after the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. יעלה אדם מעשר שני לירושלים ויאכלנו בזמן הזה, even after the Churban, and eat it. So the truth is that the Rambam tells us in L'chot Maaser Sheni chapter 2 that it's still applicable. The mitzvah of the second tithe is applicable even nowadays in the absence of the temple and may be eaten while the temple exists, as the verse juxtaposes second tithe with firstborn according to Rabbi Ishmael's statement, the Mishnah Lamelech adds that the second tithe may be eaten in the event that the altar is constructed. But anyway, you see that but you see that there's a notion that is all applicable. But anyway, the idea of the second tithe is one separate from the produce after giving truma to the Kohen, and the first tithe to Leviyim. So the Gemarah said, "Vedinu, bchor ta'un avat makom u'maser ta'un avat makom." You have the firstborn that require bringing to a place in Yerushalayim and eating there. Second tithe produce require bringing it to the place, which is Deuteronomy 12. So they said the same way, ma bchor eno b'fnei habayit, the same way as the firstborn offering only has to be eaten only in the presence of the Beit HaMikdash. So too, af maaser eno b'fnei habayit. So also the second tithe produce has to be only eaten in the presence of the temple. So if you follow the halacha, the firstborn male animal is given to the Kohen. In the absence of Beit HaMikdash, however, he may not partake it until it develops a blemish, and thereby becoming disqualified from being fit for sacrificial offering. So Rabbi Ishmael notes that the derivation can be challenged. When it's come to the firstborn, it requires placement of the blood and the sacrificial portion upon the altar. So he said the same apply to Maser Sheni, to second tithe produce, which require only to be consumed in Yerushalayim. Bikurim yochichu. The first fruit will prove that the placement of the blood upon the altar, it's not a factor, because they do not require placement of blood on the altar, and yet they brought to Yerushalayim only in the presence of Beit HaMikdash. That's mitzvah of Bikurim, is a presence of Beit HaMikdash, Ma'ale Bikurim Shken Toni Manacha. When it's come to first fruit, they require placement alongside the altar. So since the second tithe produce does not require placement at all, even the present one might bring it to Yerushalayim and eat it there. Talmud lomar v'aveitem shama oloteichem makish maaser livchor. We juxtapose the second tithe with the firstborn. Ma bchor elo lefnei habayit. Only firstborn you have to be when it's a temple existing. Of maaser elo lefnei habayit. The same way as the second tithe produce has to be in the presence of Beit HaMikdash. So the Gemarah said v'nehedar dina, but the logical derivation return to halacha will be derived from what? From the common element v'neite b'mei atzad, between the halacha of the firstborn animal and the first fruit. So mishum deika limifrach mal atzad hashaveh shebahen sheken yesh behem mizbeach. The mechanism between the two is that they possess an aspect of being offered upon the altar. So because you have here the second tithe produce does not share this characteristic, so the its halacha cannot be derived from those pertaining to a firstborn animal and first fruit. Ma'ika savar, what Rabbi Ishmael hold? This is a famous machloket because you see a lot of application learned in Tractate Zevachim and other places. If he holds that the initial consecration of the temple sacrifice on its time and it's sacrificed forever, and this is a well-known discussion halacha, how far you go with sanctification of the temple. So they said even not just that time but also the future, afilu b'chonami. So even the firstborn animal may be eaten. It only at that present time, but not for the future. Even with the same dilemma raised in regard to the firstborn as well. That the notion is that it's not sanctified forever. And here what we are dealing with, is בבחור שנזרק דמו קודם חורבן הבית. וחרב הבית ועדיין בשרו קיים. Here's the kind of exception, a rare situation. We're dealing with the firstborn that was slaughtered and whose blood was sprinkled on the altar before the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. And then the temple was destroyed and the meat of the firstborn still exists. So it's important to note a few point I want to share with you. First, the idea of the tzitz. The tzitz was the head of the Kohen Gadol it was, the goal is לרצות על הטומאה שתארה במקדש. הפסוק said, והיה על מצח אהרון, ונשא אהרון את עוון הקודשים אשר הקדישו בני ישראל לכל מתנות קודשיהם, והיה על מצחות תמיד לרצון להם לפני השם. So the pasuk in Shmot, chapter 28, verse 38, speak about how basically it's atoned for the people. So the great Rav Shachor Zatzal, in his book Bigdei Kuna and Parashat Vayakhel, he said that Lichora, when you have the Minyan Taryag, when you have the enumeration of the 613 mitzvot, the tzitz should be one of them, because the albishat tzitz is not tluya be'albishat shal b'gadav, that it's not the putting the tzitz on a kohen gadol is not part of the condition of the rest of his garment. The haritzui על הטומאה שיש בנשיאת הציץ תלוי בציץ לחודי מבלי שייכותו לשאר בגדי הכהן. It's not necessarily part of what required from the kohen gadol. And he further said, ומוטלת המצווה לעשות ציץ גם אם נבצר מהם לעשות את שאר שבעת בגדי הכהן גדול. There is a mitzvah to do the tzitz, even they cannot do the other 7 garment of the high priest. העבודה יכולה לעשות על ידי כהן אידיוט הלבוש 4 בגדים, because you have regular mundane, regular kohen that carry 4 garments, that's sufficient. So obviously there is a discussion, and he left it open. Anyway, the Rambam in Ilchot Beit HaBchira chapter 6, and you see it also in a discussion, the Ravid, the Radvaz, the Kesef Mishnah said that the sanctity that King David and Solomon confirm upon the temple area in Yerushalayim was not seized, as it is consequence of the divinic presence resting there. So therefore sacrifices may be offered despite the fact that the temple is not yet rebuilt, and one may consume the meat of offerings of the most sacred order in the temple courtyard, even though there is no wall delineating the area. One may consume offerings of lesser sanctity and the second tithe in Yerushalayim, even though it is not walled, provided that the altar is built. That's the important Mishnah Lamelech. By contrast, the sanctity of Eretz Israel with regard to the land-dependent mitzvot ceased with the destruction of the first temple, except for the parts of Eretz Israel that were seized by those who returned to Babylonia in the time of Ezra. But we said that is a Radvaz, Ravid, and Kesef Mishnah there on this Rambam Ilchot Beit HaBchira chapter 6. So they said, Itkash besaro ויתקש בשרו לדמו. מה דמו במזבח ובשרו במזבח, ואתם מעשר ויאליף מבחור. So the Gemarah ask, וכי דבר למד בהקש חוזר ומלמד בהקש? So you have something that was derived from juxtaposition. We learned many times you cannot derive juxtaposition from the other juxtaposition. Since the halakha with regard to the meat of the firstborn offering is derived from the juxtaposition of the meat of the blood of the firstborn, one cannot then prove that the same halakha applies to the second tithe produce simply because it's juxtaposed in the verse that the meat of the firstborn. So the Gemarah answered and they said, Maaser Dagan Hulinhu. The second tithe grain is non-sacred, so therefore is the acceptable method for deriving the halakha is not limited in this manner. Anicha leman de'amar batar lamed askinan, leman de'amar batar melamed askinan, mai ika lemeimar. So you follow the one who said that the one who derived by the second hakesh. Since in the case the matter is derived from the second tithe produce, which for this purpose is not sacred, its legal status may be derived from the juxtaposition with the halachot of the sacrificial matters. But the one who said, we follow the matter that teach, which is from which the halakha is derived, what is what exactly we're about to say? The second tithe produce may not derive by means of juxtaposition, which the status of the firstborn offering, which itself was derived from the blood of the offering, because the firstborn offering is not a sacrificial manner. So the Gemarah said, Dam uvasar chada milta hu. The blood of the firstborn and its meat, it's considering one entity because they both came from the same korban. The Aruch LaNer explained on Makot, page 19b, that the sprinkle of the blood permit the meat to be eaten, so therefore it's considering as one entity. So therefore, even we learn that the whole din basar by doing the juxtaposition to his blood, we don't have here din chadash, which only expanded the din of dam bechor on the din of the basar. So we can derive from that basar bechor, by using juxtaposition to the second tithe, that it's not considering davar alamed min alamed, because the second juxtaposition is basically the derivative, which is new one from the previous one. So so basically you see from here that Abaye has proven, quoting Rabbi Ishmael's statement cited by Rabbi Yossi, that even sacrificial items of lesser sanctity, which is Kodashim Kalim, may not be eaten if the altar is missing or damaged. And as we said, it's based on Gemarah Hullin, page 18.